Well, if you thought yesterday's video was bad, wait till you see today's. So yeah, we had a raid teaser 5 days remaining. Today, 4 days remaining, we've had a Fractal teaser. So the devs have gone out and done one for everything. This one seems to have generated a bit of anti-hype because it really doesn't show much. We kind of have to squint to look at it as it comes from Facebook video. You'll notice they do, a teaser on YouTube or a trailer on YouTube. They do a teaser on Twitter and then one on Facebook. They're trying to hit all the areas, I guess. I think they have a couple of others that I don't really use so much, but I guess we'll keep our eye out. But anyway, this trailer, really, you can't get much detail out of. It's very dark, it's very grimy, there's only a few pixels to look at. But I figured I would talk about it anyway. I did want to share this, get you all involved, and give you my take. And yeah, it'll be a bit of a short video. Yeah, there might not be that much in it. But hey, I got a big week coming up next week, so screw it. I'm going to be lazy today, and we'll see how we feel. So, let's first just watch the teaser. And I did warn you, there's not much in it. Alright, so there you have it. Pretty stark contrast, if you remember, to the Nightmare teaser, which is probably the best Fractal teaser they've ever done, which showed all of this crazy nonsense and showcased some of the beautiful music. Now the teaser seems to be a lot smaller. You'll recall as well that the Shattered Observatory teaser wasn't necessarily very good either. The Shattered Observatory teaser was this. A small clipping from one of the cutscenes, or the cutscene, that plays in that Fractal. The thing with that, though, it could get away with being really basic and weird because, like, it in its essence was abstract, and it was exciting to see that they were doing something a bit weird and different. When you reduce a teaser to as basic as this, just a few frames, essentially, of something that you can't interpret much from, but it's even in the game engine, I don't know, I think that that's going to cause a bit of upset. There's not even any music or sound, and I actually think that subtly that might be one of the biggest things about this teaser. It's managed to get about 10,000 views on Facebook, and I'm getting to it quite early as recording this video, but I wonder if maybe they could be doing a lot better. Anyway, so let's see what we can actually pick at, and I think that probably the best thing to tackle this from is what it doesn't show. And therefore, through process of elimination, we actually do know several things. Like, for example, the raid teaser yesterday showing a snowy, or ashy, by the way. Some people suggested maybe it is the Fissure of Woe and it's ash we were looking at there. And I'm on board with that. That sounds pretty cool. In either way, I don't think that what we're looking at here in the Fractal is anything related to that. So they are going to be separate. I think we would have assumed that anyway. But this seems to be a very different style and aesthetic to the region. It also clearly doesn't show several other places. Now remember, this is the Fractals of the Mist. If there's anything, if you play all the content in the game and you really care about the lore, if there's any one specific place you should be really excited about updates for, it should be Fractals. Because Fractals can be anything from anywhere in any point of history, just not the future. Like, that's insane. This could have been the Jade Sea, this could have been the Echovald Forest, this could have been anywhere in Cantha. We could have been up in the Blood Legion homelands, we could have been in regions, or we can, I guess, from the teaser. We could be, like, places we've never even seen. We could be out in the middle of the unending ocean. Like, that's thrilling. And so, seeing this, it actually looks, funnily enough to me, to be a lot more local to the current Path of Fire storylines and regions than maybe I was originally anticipating. So what this immediately puts me in remnants of is the Lost Precipice and more of that kind of aesthetic. We also saw a bit of it in Verdant Brink too, if you recall some of those areas near one of the adventures with the Rumble Pit where you have to pick up all the salvage very quick. I think that it actually looks a lot like that, and that's funny because the main trailer for this upcoming patch also had some scenes, this here, which put me in mind of the same thing. So I wonder then whether this Fractal is going to be telling a story a long time ago in some kind of Cornan region, if that's where the new map's going to be, or, you know, some kind of much more closely tied thing to Elona. And if not Elona, I wonder with the Lost Precipice as well, whether maybe we could actually be looking a bit more at the Exalted. And I say that for another reason, because actually the most interesting thing of this teaser occurs right at the start. Alright, so if we pause very early, right after the fade in from the black screen ends, you do get a bit more than just this random geography. You get some NPCs. Look at that down there. There's 3 dudes. Very easy to miss. They're only there for about half a second. Some people on Reddit had suggested that maybe they could see a scythe or some kind. I don't know if I'm really buying that. And people were excited at the idea of Margonites. Now, Margonites would be a very cool and appropriate thing to look at, especially since we just went to the Crystal Desert and stuff, and Abaddon's sort of been on the fringes of the story at the moment, and yet Path of Fire itself never properly tackled. So I would love the Marganite thing, but I don't know entirely. However, something that's very similar to Marganites in many ways are the Exalted, in terms of like their energetic, bipedal, sort of slender, upright look. And Exalted, you know, were the people who built the Lost Precipice and this old ruin stuff. Even the Silver Waste had a little bit of it as well. So I wonder maybe whether this fractal could also be some kind of look at one of the old Exalted places long ago. That would tie into Glint 2 and the laying out of Glint's legacy, maybe even touch a bit on Kesho and Vlast. There were a lot of people who felt from Path of Fire that Vlast didn't get enough of a look in. Now, there's something that I almost did there, but we have to be careful of. I don't think that this fractal is going to contain content in response to feedback from Path of Fire's release. So what I mean by that is if ArenaNet overwhelmingly heard with Path of Fire that there wasn't enough on Glint, I don't believe that this fractal, they would have had enough time to have developed a fractal in response to that. I think that this fractal was probably being worked on, or the seeds planted for this, even maybe before the Shattered Observatory came out. I remember when the Nightmare fractal released, which so far is my favourite new fractal they've done, there was a suggestion that had been worked on for over a year, I believe. And so I don't know whether they will have been agile enough to have responded. So the idea, hey, are these going to be Exalted and more stuff for Vlast because people didn't feel like they got enough of Vlast? I'm not entirely sure. Moving on, I suppose there are a few more possibilities. If the main trailer shows us going to a map that has architecture and geography that looks a lot like this fractal, the idea that this fractal is showing a past version of that map and they somehow bind together would be quite exciting. We also have the idea that maybe it's just something about Vabi or a general Ilonan region. In fact, because there's all these big cliffs and high areas, it makes me think of like the cliffs of Dodgok and stuff. And we got 3 characters at the bottom. Perhaps it's retelling something Nightfall related. Maybe the 3 characters are the 3 princes of Vabi, guys. Maybe just before Nightfall began. Maybe just after Nightfall closed. Maybe even during Nightfall. I don't know. A lot of people have proposed that Fractals should touch on explicitly Guild Wars 1 moments, and I don't know whether I want the game to do that too much, but giving us a bit more backstory into them, and maybe even especially around the hidden city of Adashim, which for many reasons I think could be extremely exciting for the season regularly to go to. That could all be quite thrilling. So then maybe you've got ideas of Palawa. Palawa is obviously a big part of the story. Could we get more detail about Palawa before he was a Lich, if such a thing exists? Could we get a bit more detail about very deep Ilonan history, like the Scarab Plague and the time of the Primeval Kings and so on? That's all rich storytelling that would feel appropriate considering we are, you know, during the Path of Fire days and we're around that region. And especially if it does something to contrast with Daybreak, the main patch, I'm pretty excited by. Then there's some other stuff as well. Obviously, the most recent new Fractals we just had were a trilogy, a storyline, dealing with Ark and Dessa. And my impressions from the AMAs, and I could be misremembering here or wrong, but it's that those 3 are kind of a story in and of themselves, and now we're moving into other territory. So I don't know whether I expect Ark to appear, or much reference to Ark, or Dessa to act particularly different. It's weird rewatching this teaser actually and remembering that Dessa will be quipping with us. So how do they handle Dessa in the future? Is she just going to be randomly remarking on various things generically, like she would in the Swampland Fractal or the Snowblind Fractal and so forth? That kind of makes her a less interesting part of these things again, but maybe that's the way that we'll just have to go from now. And then there's the idea that, okay, we just had 3 fractals that told a story. If they're moving to a new story, do you think they'll do 3 fractals again that tell another one? Or will this be totally out on its own? I think that this is an opportunity for the devs to really play with that kind of stuff in Fractals and see how they want to handle things. The idea of Fractals telling a B-plot to contemporary regular Guild Wars 2 was really exciting. But maybe there's even more excitement in going a different method. Lastly, we can talk a bit about mechanics. First of all, remember, mounts won't be in Fractals, because Fractals are core content. So, yes, we see lots of high areas. Are you imagining climbing around on a Springer right now and then flying off in a Griffin? Well, don't, because you won't be doing that. So there's not going to be any big changes there. Also, an impression that I had from the AMAs was that this kind of style they did for the more recent 3 editions, where it was very raid-like, and it was very like boss centric and encounter specific, that they were moving away from that. Actually, I had the impression that they weren't going to be doing so much of that, and I think this would be a good time to move away from that too, because I am a little tired of random bosses being spawned that we have to kill, and then you sort of do another minor little phase, and then it's a big boss, and then a minor phase, and then it's a big boss. I actually kind of like to go back to the Molten Facility. I think this is the one with the Living World Season 1 story of Bram and Rox going through and following the cart and stuff. That's a bad Fractal for a lot of reasons, but the way it paces and separates its various encounters, if you will, I actually really like, and I'd like to see that they do that on this new one here as well. So mechanically, I think they might be going for something like that. Not particularly raid-like, and in addition to that too, every time they've added a new Fractal so far, it's become the new max of the tier, right? So when Chaos came out, it was the 25, the 50, the 75, and the Big Daddy 100. Then we had Nightmare, same, and then Shattered Observatory, same. I don't know whether this new Fractal should seek to become the new 100. You might find it slots into a different space. And so that will be kind of interesting to see, especially if they do go for a different gameplay styling. You have that other question of what will they do in terms of a challenge mode. And so there's a lot floating around here because it kind of is sort of a new era, I would say. We got a new expansion, obviously, and now we get a new selection and styling, perhaps, of Fractals coming forward. That's how I feel tentatively moving into this mechanically. Maybe I'm all wrong and it will just be another carbon copy, very similar experience to the other three. But that's really what's actually exciting to me. It's really got very little to do with this trailer here. And it's really the main thing that I find myself wondering about. So I'm thrilled to go back to the Fractals. I'm a little disappointed that it's showing us an area that seems like it's going to be quite heavily tied to the Nightfall regions in some respects. But then, hey, who was really expecting us to suddenly be back in Kaineng Center or something? They obviously don't have all the assets and things to build for that. So yeah, there you go, guys. That's the teaser. Just a little bit of an excuse, really, to chat about the new Fractal coming up in a couple of days and really show off the triple release as best as possible before it actually comes out, and I have a mind-numbing amount of stuff to do. So thanks. Please remember the competition is going to be over very soon, so if you want to enter, do it very shortly, and I'll see you guys down in the comments. Let's see what we think.